And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis. And as always, my beautiful co host, who is turning 22 today as we are filming this on December 7th. You will see this on December 8th. But Laraib, happy birthday.
Thank
First off,
you.
how are you
Thank
feeling
you.
today? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling 22. Great to be here as always. I know you had to film an episode on your birthday, so it's only fair I had to do one on mine.
We make sacrifices around here, all right? It's all for the best of the pod, you know? We're
Yeah, for
here to
sure.
cover the sport we love. And this is a short week of this will be a shorter episode. We have 6 teams on bye this week. Those teams are the Packers, Falcons, Bears, Colts, Saints, and Commanders. So I let me say something real quick because a lot of my fellow Saints fans are probably going to be wondering. We didn't do a New Orleans Seattle corner for New Orleans because they were playing that Monday Night Football game. Let me just say, I'm going to keep it quick, Larob. The season is officially over.
No, it's not.
Stop. All right, stop. It mathematically whatever, but it is over, right? That is a game you needed to win in order to keep your hopes somewhat alive. And you know what? I told you, and I've said on this podcast in the recent weeks, I'm happy it's over. I can stop giving hope into this team. And watching that game on Monday was just the ultimate culmination of that was a microcosm of the Saints season right there. It's getting your hopes up, seeing the talent, seeing the potential of this team, and then them to do all the dumb things that they've done all season, all the stupid coaching, all the stupid plays just came into one, and we lost a game. Give credit where credit is due. Not a lot of teams, not a lot of quarterbacks can pull off a comeback like that. Tom Brady is the unquestioned GOAT. And, I hope, that the Bucks are a playoff team despite their record when he's the quarterback. So it's not like, oh, the winner of this division is just going to get trounced in the first round because of how bad they've been. This can be a 2010 Seahawks type of team in which they might be heavy underdogs. They might, not have the talent to keep up with some of these other teams. But as long as they have 12 at quarterback, they're going to be fine, in my opinion. I'm not picking them to win the Super Bowl or anything, but you can't just sleep on them. So that is my obituary for the Saints team. I have written them off, and we are moving on to more exciting and fun teams. I don't know if you wanted to say anything on that, Laura, before we move on.
No, you say this week after week, Lewis. The Saints have the guys to win football games. You have playmakers all across the board. And it's just the coaching. Either it's Pete Carmichael with some boneheaded, offensive plays, slant routes to Callaway when you could easily run it in with Taysom Hill, and all the different sort of just coaching mistakes that's been just haunting your team. Maybe if you guys had a guy like Sean Payton in the building, maybe
Yeah.
it could be a different outcome, Lewis. But let's move on to week 14, Lewis, and we're starting off with a good one here. We have the New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills. Now, the last time these two divisional teams matched up, the Jets came out on top, Lewis, and that's the way I'm leaning in this one. I don't know how you feel about it, but that Jets defense, Lewis, is for real. Sauce Gardner with DJ Reed are an amazing cornerback combo out there. And then Robert Saleh, he's a defensive head coach, and he's got this defense rolling, Lewis. And I really like them on the road against the Bills team, where Von Miller is done for the rest of the season, unfortunately, with a torn ACL. And Josh Allen, he's been on a little bit of a roll since that elbow injury, but I still like the Jets in this one. Mike White gets it done in this one.
I'm going to have to strongly disagree with you here, Larab. This is by far Mike White's biggest challenge as an NFL starter. The last 2 weeks, he has played very porous NFL defenses to keep it PG around here. But I don't see, this is a huge test going into Buffalo. And yes, they lose Von Miller. But if you look at last week's game against the Patriots, in which they had on their first drive a trick play to a special teamer for a touchdown. And after that, they were effectively shut out for the rest of the game. And now you expect, and that was with no Von Miller, granted. Now he's out for the season, but they still have a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball. And now you expect, and yes, I'll give credit to this Jets defense. They've been playing outstanding football all season. But the Bills have very slowly been developing a running game over there, getting guys like James Cook involved. Devin Singletary is able to get 5 yards to carry and just making them respectable on that front to where it's not all on Josh Allen. And for you to say that the Jets are going to sweep the Buffalo Bills, who are currently the best team record-wise in the AFC, that's a very bold statement to make. I feel like I'm, going crazy picking chalk here because you do bring up good points, but this is too big of a task for Mike White to go on the road and face a Bills team that is starving for a victory and knows what it needs to do to get towards the end of the season. I don't think the Jets sweep the Bills in the season. So I'm going to go with a dominant Bills victory. I'm going to go Bills 30 to Jets 17.
And I'm going to go the other way, Lewis. I think guys with like Garrett Wilson and Moore getting more rapport with our boy Mike White and Zonovan Knight going out there and putting on a great performance the back-to-back weeks. I think this Jets team can get it done, Lewis. I'm still in the playoff race over there in the AFC, and I think this is a big one that they get on the road against a Bills team who's unsuspecting of them. So I like the Jets 27-24 on the road, Lewis. Well, let's move on to another game. We have the Cleveland Browns now with Deshaun Watson in his second start, going to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. Cincinnati -6 in this one, Lewis. And I will say to start this off that Joe Burrow has never beaten the Browns in his career. We know Joe Burrow is the Mahomes killer, but it looks like Kevin Stefanski over there in Cleveland is the Burrow stopper. And so what do you think the Bengals can do in this one to get Joe Burrow his first win against the Cleveland Browns?
I think it's really about this defense of the Bengals that has kind of transformed how this season has been. Defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo has been a very hot topic for the past few weeks for the defensive performances that he's done against the Titans and last week against the Chiefs, shutting them out in the fourth quarter and sealing that victory. Now, there is a sense, you're absolutely right. The Browns have the Bengals number, and the way that Joe Burrow has played is a far cry from what we expect from him whenever he faces the Browns. But I will say, I think it's going to be a defensive game. The Bengals just went from their biggest win of the season against the Chiefs, who they always get up for. That's a huge game on their schedule, to now you face a team in your division who you're supposed to beat, but they have your number. I do think the Bengals win this one, Laraib, but I think it's going to be a close game. And the biggest thing for me that I'm going to say gives the Bengals the edge is the Deshaun Watson factor, in which he played awfully against the Texans last week, who are not a great defense. And yes, you can say there's a lot of, mental things there that he needs to get, he's rusty. He has not played a game in over 2 years, and he needed to kind of figure out the offense. Maybe he plays better this week, but against this Bengals defense, which has been super impressive, I don't think he can get it done on the road.
Right. And the big thing for me in this one, Lewis, is going to be that Browns defensive line with Myles Garrett up against this Bengals offensive line. Now, the last time these two teams played on Halloween, it was Myles Garrett and company having a field day out there against that Bengals offensive line. And so in this game, when you get guys like Joe Mixon back and Samaje Perine, who's been outstanding, I think you get the ball out to them on those screen passes, short game, minimize that pass rush for the Cleveland Browns and, get out with the victory. I agree with you. This is going to be a low, or maybe not low scoring, but really, really tight game. But the Bengals get out on top on a crucial victory that puts them ahead in the AFC East. So I like the Bengals 28-24.
And you brought up a good point, Laraib. This Bengals offensive line is completely transformed since the last time they've played. And it's the emergence of this running game that's really allowed this Bengals offense to be so much more dangerous. We saw Samaje Perine run through over 100 yards against the Chiefs last week. And this has been no joke. They have been running the ball super effectively in this past in this 4-game winning stretch. That's allowed them to take pressure off Joe Burrow, let him make the right reads, and allow this running game to do a lot of the work. And that's the thing that's been, hurting this Bengals team for the longest time. But now, like I said, this offensive line, late in the season, they're starting to gel. They're starting to come together. Probably one of my biggest victories early on in this season. Is talking about this Bengals offensive line, which definitely has the talent. And we know this Browns defense is very susceptible. That interior defensive line and those linebackers are not good against the run whatsoever. So if you can establish that running game, unlike you were able to do on that Halloween game that you were referencing, then you will have success in this ball game. But the Browns will make it close. They always make it close. These are always close games. So I'm going to go with the Bengals 24-20, and it's going to be an exciting one. I just think Deshaun Watson cannot beat Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. But, Laraib, let's go ahead and move on to another noon game. This one is not going to be that close, in my opinion. We have the Houston Texans, the Battle of Texas. Houston traveling to Dallas to face the Cowboys. Cowboys favored by a whopping 16.5 points. I think the Cowboys, this is a game for them. They don't mess around with their food. I'll say that about the Cowboys. When they have a bad opponent, they will pounce and they will make their presence known. So they look like a lot better of a team than maybe they are. but this is the perfect Mike McCarthy game in which he will show off all of his weapons, all of his explosiveness, and they will beat the Texans rather handily, Laraib.
Yeah, I expect a Mike McCarthy masterclass in this one, Lewis, especially
Oh,
against the
yeah.
Texans team, which has had a lot of questions at quarterback, Lewis. Now they're switching back to our guy, Davis Mills, and so he'll be at the helm against this Cowboys team, and he's gonna be like a steak on a platter for this Cowboys defensive line, to be honest. This one is not going to be close at all, Lewis. I agree with you. Not much to say in this one. Just a Texans team who's been reeling the past couple weeks and just ready for the draft. And so I like the Cowboys 42-13.
And I like the Cowboys in this one. I'm going to go 35-10. I just think they run the ball all over this Texans team, which has been the worst run defense in the NFL. So maybe it might be a little lower scoring just because the Cowboys dominate the game to where they don't have to run up the score like they needed to against Jeff Saturday last week. But with this explosive defense, they're probably going to get a defensive touchdown or something like that in this game. So it really won't be close. But surprise us, Houston. Let's move on now to a very exciting game. We have had our eye on this one since the lines came out at the beginning of the week, Laraib. The Minnesota Vikings traveling to Detroit. And Detroit, despite having 5 less wins than the Vikings, are favored by 2.5 points at home. Is this just Vegas being drunk, Laraib? Or is this some serious merit to this line?
Well, Lewis, I agree with Vegas in this one. Last week you could easily have said that the Vikings lost that game against the Jets if Braxton Berrios comes down with that pass in the end zone. And the Lions have been rolling, Lewis. Besides that loss on Thanksgiving to the Bills, they've been on a little hot streak here. And now when they're still right in the wild card race, Lewis, in the NFC, I think this is going to be a really big game that they're going to get up for. And especially after the first game, which they blew with the Jared Goff interception late, just blowing that, 14 point lead. I think the Vikings basically have this division locked up. You're not going to be trying as hard as this Lions team who's been fired up the past couple of weeks. And I really like this Lions team at home, Lewis.
See, there's one side of me that agrees with everything you just said. And then there's the competitive side to me that always looks to get the edge over you in these picks, Laraib. And that's the side I'm going to lean with right now. You say the Vikings don't have anything to play for. Well, if you win this game, you lock up your division, no questions asked. The division is yours. You have clinched. All you got to do is win this game. Now, you can say, oh, we'll clinch it later down the line. But why not clinch it now? And then you can start to take your foot off the gas pedal going into the playoffs when you know you have that berth locked up. This is the NFL. Crazy things happen. And yes, this is a Lions team that deserves its respect. They've been playing outstanding football, running the ball super well. Jamal Williams just keeps finding his nose for the end zone. And there's not a lot to say about how the Lions have been playing, just giving teams a great fight. But this Vikings team has pride, and they win the close games, Laraib. Now, you can say it's fluky, it won't last, they won't be able to do it in the playoffs, but this is another noon Vikings game that I can see all over. A turnover by the Lions in the third or fourth quarter just ends up bouncing the Vikings' way, and they find a way to pull it out of their butt, and they make this, and they get another close win, and this will effectively eliminate the Lions from the playoff picture, which, I mean, sad for us because we love watching this young team. Plus, Jamison Williams is really going to have an impact in this game against this horrible Vikings secondary. But I'm going with the Vikings. I need an edge on you. We've been tying too much. We're neck and neck in the pick so far. So I'm going with the Vikings with the upset, which sounds insane to say. But I'm going with the Vikings 24 to the Lions 23 in a wild noon game, Laraib.
Well, Lewis, one thing we can say about this game, it will be high scoring, in my opinion. The worst scoring D with the Lions and the worst passing D with the Vikings. I think this is a recipe for success in this one for both these teams airing out the ball. Justin Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown masterclass incoming. And I like the Lions at home in a crucial victory, 31-28, Lewis. But let's move on to another divisional matchup. Plenty of these divisional games this week, Lewis. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars facing up against the Tennessee Titans, who've been on a 2-game losing streak, Lewis. Tennessee -4. I'll start off with this one. Derrick Henry has not looked the same this past couple of weeks. Facing 2 really, really tough defenses in the Eagles and, whoever else they played. And so now this week you're placing against a divisional opponent. I know they basically have this, or they should have this division locked up, right? Teams like the Texans in here, the Jaguars in here, who haven't been playing well all season long. But Mike Vrabel, when you're losing games like this, where you're getting dominated in back-to-back weeks, it does not look good for your team. And now you're facing against a Jaguars team, which we know has been up and down all season long. I think this is a game that the Titans really come out in and, put their foot down against a Jaguars team who hasn't been played well all season long.
Yeah, this has been a very tumultuous past 2 weeks for this Titans squad, in which, they lose 2 games, 2 critical games for them against good teams in pretty embarrassing fashion in both instances. And then earlier this week, they fire their general manager, John Robinson, kind of out of nowhere. It's unprecedented for a team with a winning record and the lead in their division to fire their general manager this late into a season in which you have a chance to make a playoff run. And a lot of people are speculating, oh, A.J. Brown, the guy you traded, made you look like a fool last week. And then the front office was like, you know what? No, we're getting rid of this guy. That was just such a bad look for our franchise. And it seems like Mike Vrabel and his tough attitude are starting to really come out, and his mindset. This has Mike Vrabel's fingerprints all over it. The Jaguars, they got embarrassed like last week. The Titans got embarrassed last week. So it's really just about right now, which team has more fortitude, which team do we trust more, whose coach do we trust more, and all those things point towards the Titans. And that is why I think they will have the edge in this game, along with all the other X's and O's stuff as well. But who cares?
Right, for sure, Lewis. And one thing I just started off the segment saying Derrick Henry has struggled, but one team he hasn't struggled against, Lewis, it's been the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's dominated this team for the past couple of years. And even with Treylon Burks out, I think they can get it done in this one with our boy Derrick Henry. And so I like the Titans. It's going to be a close one, Lewis. We'll see how this Jaguar team comes out to play. But I like the Titans 28-24.
Yeah, and I like the Titans as well. I don't think it'll be that close. I think the Titans get this one out. It's going to be a slow, hard-fought divisional game, but I'm going to go with Titans 21 to Jaguars 10. Jaguars really never find a footing in this one, and they're going to start looking towards some of those draft picks coming up next offseason. But let's move on, Laraib, to another divisional matchup in the noon slate. We have the Eagles going to New York to face the Giants. Eagles favored by 7 in this matchup, Laraib. We saw the Giants, tie last week, and they've been kind of on a skid. They haven't won a game in 4 weeks now. Now they're facing the best team in the NFC. What chance would you give the Giants to win this game? And are you leaning that way in this game?
Well, Lewis, I'm not leaning towards the Giants this one. I really like the Eagles. I keep on saying this could be a potential upset, Lewis. I will say the Giants really, really want to win this game, in my opinion. Not just, divisional matchup, but for their playoff hopes, Lewis. They're right there neck and neck with the Seahawks and Commanders, and this would be a really big game for them to win and put themselves a leg up. But I don't think they'll get it done, Lewis. Even at home, this Eagles team, week after week, they really impressed me, getting it done on the ground, through the air. Now you're facing a Giants team, like you said, who hasn't been able to win the past couple of weeks. I think the Eagles feast in this one and continue their hot streak.
Yeah, I agree with you, Laraib. And I think what you said is this running defense has really kind of found its way. We saw there was a little stretch there in which they were allowing big runs and they didn't look like themselves from early in the season. But, Jordan Davis comes back off IR. You sign Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh off the waivers, and they're playmakers for you. This defensive line is just, there's so much versatility, and they destroyed Derrick Henry last week, forcing him the least amount of rushing yards per carry in his entire career in last week's game. So in this matchup, if you can do that against Saquon, this Giants offense has no identity outside of that. But I will warn you, if you keep this game close, the Giants just find a way to win these games in a divisional game at home. You really, if you want to win this game, you got to go out and you got to put up the first 14 points of the game and show the Giants that you are not to be messed around with, and they'll go away and die. But if you keep this game close and it's like 6-3 at halftime, going into the fourth quarter, it's a 10-3 game, then the Giants could do some damage. You need to look out. But I do have the Eagles in this one. I think they start off strong and they just coast towards the end and they win this game on the road. I'm going to go Eagles 14. Or no, I'm going to go Eagles 24 to Giants 17.
Yes, Lewis, and I'll also be picking the Eagles 27-23. Saquon Barkley has slowed down the past couple of weeks, and he gets bottled up in this one, Lewis. But let's move on to yet another divisional game we have. the Lamar Jackson-less Baltimore Ravens going to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers. Now, Pittsburgh are -2.5, Lewis, and that defense has been on a roll the past couple of weeks, Lewis, with TJ Watt back, with Minka Fitzpatrick balling out. And now you're facing against a Ravens team without their leading rusher and their leading passer, Lewis. Do you think the Steelers can get it done in this one?
I do think the Steelers can get it done. They've been playing great defense for the past few weeks, ever since TJ Watt has come back. And a Ravens team, which has very little playmakers, and no Lamar, that is a very tall task for Tyler Huntley to beat this Steelers team on the road, which is starting to find its rhythm. This offense, yes, it is underwhelming. And that's honestly a good thing for the Steelers to say that this offense is underwhelming, because that means most fans believe that it has a higher ceiling to reach with these playmakers. And what we've seen from Kenny Pickett, we think he can play better. And this Ravens defense, yes, this has been the reason that they've been competitive, to, let's be honest, even with Lamar in these past few games. But I do think the Steelers get it done. They get some key turnovers. And, after seeing what we saw against the Broncos last week, I think the Steelers are just a much better offense in this stage of the game. And they've been running the ball very well, especially. So I think the Steelers win this game. These divisional opponents are always, super neck and neck. But I do give the edge to the Steelers just because of that defense and how they're able to really stop the run, and forcing Tyler Huntley to throw to subpar receivers and a banged up Mark Andrews is a recipe for disaster for this Ravens squad.
Well, Lewis, I don't think that Lamar Jackson missing this game hurts the Ravens as much as you think. I really liked Tyler Huntley last year. He came in for this Ravens team and he did an outstanding job. And now, when you have these backup quarterbacks come in, the system is built around Lamar Jackson, and Tyler Huntley is Lamar Jackson from Walmart. He's great value Lamar Jackson. So I feel like he can go in there and do a suitable job against the Steelers team. And like you mentioned, this is a big rivalry between these two teams. And so I like the Ravens. I think Justin Tucker and his leg can get it done in this one. And Tyler Huntley, he just has to feed Mark Andrews. And, he's going to play with his hair on fire, Lewis. He's a backup quarterback. He played really well last year. A lot of speculation if a team could sign him as a starter. And so I think he provides a spark for this team where Lamar Jackson has been struggling the past couple of weeks. I think he goes out there and puts on a show for this Ravens offense. And I think they win 20-17 in a defensive battle.
Well, here's where I disagree with you, Laraib. First off, to say that I wouldn't have picked the Steelers even if Lamar was playing is an oversight, because I think I would have picked the Steelers regardless of how the Ravens were playing, even with Lamar when he was healthy. But even then, the Steelers have played Tyler Huntley before. It's not like he's this, super, weird quarterback that's come in and we don't have a game plan, we don't have film. He played last year, and the Steelers embarrassed him last year when they played. And now to think that with, this defense for the Steelers is improved and this offense for the Steelers is improved from last year, to think that the outcome won't be different in Pittsburgh, I think is a mistake on your part, Laraib. And I will happily take the Steelers in this one. Obviously divisional game, huge rivalry between these two teams, but I think the Steelers are just playing better football right now. So I will be taking them in this matchup. I'm going to go Steelers 26 to Ravens 20 in this game. So I will respect them in that instance. But, Laraib, let's move on to our 3 o'clock games. We have the Chiefs taking on the Broncos in Denver. Chiefs -9.5. This game originally was scheduled to be our Sunday Night Football game, but because no one wants to watch this Broncos team at all, it was flexed out, thank God. Chiefs favored by 9.5. Any way the Broncos win, Laraib?
I mean, if that defense can play even better than they already have and just pick off Patrick Mahomes over and over again, maybe they'll be able to put up 6 points in this one. And so I really like the Chiefs, Lewis. Not much to say about this game, except thank God it got flexed out of Sunday Night Football. Thanks to Roger Goodell for that. But I like the Chiefs 28-10 on the road against a Broncos team who can't score any points.
Yeah, I agree with you, Laraib. I'm going to say it's a little lower scoring from the Chiefs' part. I'm going to say 26-10. But there's no world in which this Broncos team scores more than 16 points, as we know. And this Chiefs team, they take care of the ball. They've been running the ball very well. And after a disappointing loss, they're going to be looking to get back on schedule. And this is just a team they have not lost to the Broncos since Alex Smith was the quarterback for the Chiefs. So I don't think that changes this week. I'm going with the Chiefs in that matchup, Laraib. But let's move on to the Fox NFL Game of the Week on the 325 slate. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to 49ers to take on Brock Purdy and that squad. San Francisco favored by 3.5 in this ball game, Laraib. And I'll start with this one. I think that win by the Bucks on Monday night, in which, yes, you could say a team like the Bucks should beat the Saints, but this is a Saints team that has always given Tom Brady in this offense struggle. And for them to come out in that last 3 minutes and win that game and just show the resolve of this team, the fact that this team is, they've had some disappointing losses this season, notably that Browns game 2 weeks ago in which they had that game, but they just let it go. This is an opportunity for them to show the league what they're about and to kind of figure out the identity of this team. They got Leonard Fournette going in the running game, and I think, just a short game passing. I still don't trust Tom Brady, throwing it deep. He's been off in a lot of these instances, but in these late game situations, would I take Tom Brady or Brock Purdy, the Mr. Irrelevant? I think I would take Tom Brady in this matchup, and that's why I'm favoring the Bucks in this ball game, Laraib.
Well, Lewis, we were here just a week ago talking about a Miami team who was also plus 3.5 going into San Francisco and saying, oh, this game is going to be outstanding. We'll see what the two head coaches can do, yada, 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 yada. And Kyle Shanahan goes out there and puts out a masterclass against Miami. And now you're facing up against a Bucks team, Lewis, who could easily be 4-8, right? The Saints game, if the Saints pick up a couple first downs, they're easily able to put that game away. And then against the Rams a couple of weeks ago, Sean McVay, they have the ball with less than 2 minutes left to go in the game, and they give it right back to Tom Brady. He goes back down and they score. And so you're talking about a team that could easily, Lewis, easily be 4-8. Now facing against the best defense in football, I think Tom Brady is going to be slamming a lot of Microsoft tablets on the sideline in this one. Brock Purdy, like we said, Lewis, on the Tuesday pod, he has the easiest job. He has the easiest job a quarterback could have fallen into, right? Just get the ball into your playmaker's hands and they'll do all the work for you. And so I like the 49ers at home. You can say that the Bucs defense played really well, Tom Brady and all his pedigree with Mike Evans and all those guys. But when you're facing this 49ers defense, which has been outstanding all year long, I think they can get it done in this one. I like the 49ers 24-21 at home.
Well, I think you made the mistake of bringing up the Dolphins team. Completely different teams in terms of the two Florida teams, in which Miami, an overrated defense, which really hasn't proven anything. And to say that Tampa is like Tua, you're comparing Tom Brady, the GOAT of football, who, yes, this is a really good 49ers defense. I'm not discrediting them, but Tom has seen every defense known to man at this point in his career. And Tua has maybe seen 11 of them. So to say that there's a bit of a difference in expertise in that regard. So I trust Tom Brady in a situation where he's going to San Francisco. And you know what, Laraib? This might be a dress rehearsal for next season. This might be a, 49ers trying to figure out their quarterback situation. Tom Brady, yeah, I still have a lot left in the tank. I have something to prove. And when I beat you this weekend, it's going to be a different situation. And when you look at Jimmy Garoppolo next year and you know what? We have a talented team right now and we're going to win. And the guy who can lead us there was a fan of ours growing up, a 49ers fan, Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. will go into San Francisco and lead them to another hard-fought win against a good defense. So give me the Buccaneers in this one. Tom Brady wills them to another win. And yes, you could say they should have lost this game. They should have lost that game, but they don't because he is the GOAT. And I feel awful saying this because I'm not a Tom Brady fan. I just have to respect greatness. And
you just have to pick an upset.
He will pull it off. He will pull it off in San Francisco. The upset 23-20. He is still that man. And this is a dangerous Buccaneers team going into the playoffs, Laraib. But let's move on to your team, the Seattle Seahawks, hosting the Carolina Panthers. Seahawks only favored by 3.5. Carolina coming off a bye. Obviously, as a Seahawks fan, you're looking at this matchup saying we should win. But what scares you about the Panthers to potentially make this a game that you're not too certain of?
Well, Lewis, it's the return of Sam Darnold. We saw him and his connection with DJ Moore. The last time they played, they were outstanding. And what that really does, Lewis, when you open up that deep ball with DJ Moore and it brings the linebackers back a little bit, it brings those safeties back a little bit, it opens up the rushing game. And what have the Seahawks been terrible at all season long? Defending the run. And so when the passing game really starts working, Lewis, and you mix in guys like Donta Foreman, I'm really, really scared for the Seahawks defense this week. But good thing we have Geno Smith, the comeback player of the year, on the other side of the ball. And he's been outstanding, Lewis, on all phases of the game. Deep ball, short ball, middle of the field. He's been outstanding last week. Had a game-winning drive to beat the Rams in a close one. And so I believe in the Seahawks team to get it done at home, Lewis. Tariq Woolen tied for the league lead in interceptions. And I think he could maybe get another one with Darnold at the helm this week. But I like the Seahawks in a pivotal game that they really, really need to secure the playoff spot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think the stakes are so big on this game. Yes, you have the Panthers coming off a bye. And honestly, I don't like a lot of the matchups in this game. I think the Panthers will be able to run against their will on the Seahawks defense, which has struggled against the run all season. And we've seen the Panthers team that's been kind of frisky as of late, and running the ball with Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. They've been very effective. But I think this game ultimately comes down to the Seahawks at home. You have Geno Smith. This is a game you need to stay afloat in the playoffs. And you saw what happened in the Eagles-Commanders game last week. You can really take advantage of a situation in which, yes, there was a tie, but that works out in your favor if you can pick up this win, because the schedule gets tough following this game. So this is a game of ultimate importance. They're all important, obviously, but I think you're right. Geno Smith has been an ultimate playmaker this year, and he will get it done at home. I'm going to go with the Seahawks 27-20. It is a very interesting ball game, and you will be terrified at times, but the Seahawks will pull it off.
Yeah, for sure, Lewis. And looking at the bigger picture even a little bit more, like you predicted, if this 49er squad loses to Tom Brady and the Seahawks team can get a win, we'll see a couple of weeks down the line when these two teams match up. It could be for who takes the number one seed in the NFC West. But going back to this game, just like you, I like the Seahawks. I think it'll be a little bit closer. 27-24, the Seahawks eke out a win against the Panthers team, was a sneaky good defense, Lewis. But let's move on to Sunday Night Football. We have the Miami Dolphins coming off a loss last week against the 49ers, against the Chargers team, who also came off a loss last week against the Raiders. Miami -3 in this one, Lewis. Which way are you headed in this one?
This is a super exciting game with two very polarizing quarterbacks recently in social media. I'm just super excited to watch this game. I almost don't want to pick it. I just want to enjoy both these teams, but I will pick it. And this is just a tale of two franchises in which you have the Herculean quarterback just being held back with chains so he can't unleash his full potential. And then you have the other side of this King David versus Goliath quarterback, in which he is King David, the underdog story, but he has everyone rooting with him. He has the power of God, aka Mike McDaniel, leading him forward. And I think David slays Goliath in this matchup. I like the Dolphins. I just think as an organization, as a franchise, maybe keeping some of the ownership stuff out, they have an identity and they know what they're good at. This Chargers team, it's so confusing to know where they're going to attack you. They really can't run the ball that well. Eckler is a good, playmaking running back, but he's not that efficient as a runner as you'd like him to be. And then on the outside, Mike Williams has been in and out of the lineup all the time. Keenan Allen is getting older and slower, and they don't have a lot of reliable threats outside. So it's hard, you're putting Justin Herbert in these almost impossible situations to succeed. And then you compare that to the guy who was drafted, a slot right before him in Tua Tagovailoa, who has two of the fastest receivers in the league, some of the best offensive coaching, a capable offensive line, and two very solid running backs. So it's so fun to look at the juxtaposition of these two quarterbacks and these two offenses. But I think this is gonna be a high scoring game, but I trust this Dolphins offense, which has been consistent all year until they faced that buzzsaw in San Francisco. And I think with a coach and an offense like Mike McDaniel has constructed, this is a team that adapts, and they will not put up a performance like that again. I do like the Dolphins in this ball game, Laraib.
Well, Lewis, there's only one man I can trust in football, and that's my boy Justin Herbert. Now, you can talk about how bad this Chargers defense is, Lewis. Let me give you a stat. They have the worst rush defense in the last 60 years, giving up 5.4 yards per carry. But let me tell you something, Lewis. As bad as the Chargers rush defense is, the Dolphins rushing attack is even worse. They're bottom of the league in rushing yards per game, and they just rely on that deep ball to Tua and Waddle every single game. And I think Asante Samuel and Derwin James can bottle that up in this one. And Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa get some pressure on Tua Tagovailoa, and he starts looking shaky like he did last week against the 49ers. And so I agree with you, this is going to be a high-scoring affair, but I think my boy Justin Herbert, with all his weapons back in this one with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Austin Eckler, I think that trio puts on a performance. And I know Justin Herbert doesn't have any social media, Lewis, but I'm sure people are chirping in his ear about how people think that Tua was correctly taken over him. And so I think he goes out there, masterclass Herbert game. They've been due, Lewis, 6-6, a lot of games here and there, but I think Justin Herbert is due for a masterclass. And so I like the Chargers 33-31 at home. Herbert balls out.
Now, you mentioned how porous the Chargers running game is, but you're right. The Dolphins really don't run the ball that effectively, but they run it when they need to. And here's the thing about what you said, Derwin James and Asante Samuels, they're locked down. Well, let's look at their past few performances, right? Well, Devontae Adams torched them last week. DeAndre Hopkins torched them the week before. And then you had Travis Kelce score 3 touchdowns against them the week prior. I mean, I don't know how you have faith in this Chargers defense whatsoever. And yes, I do trust Justin Herbert more as a quarterback than Tua. But I also, when you have one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league, and that's what Tua is, to his credit, and you also have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, all you have to do is put it on them. And it's like a pseudo running game. You get a bubble screen out to one of those guys, boom, that's 7 yards. Boom, that's 13 yards. Boom, they can break it for 68 if they need to, and they'll put it on. And I think that's what they're going to do. This Dolphins defense also has something to prove. I think they're up to the task against this Chargers offense, and I do believe that the Dolphins win this game. High scoring, spectacle, 38 to Chargers 35, goes down to the wire. It might even go to overtime, but the Dolphins pull it out on the road, Laraib.
Well, Lewis, that's definitely going to be an interesting game. I mean, we both agree high scoring, but I like the Chargers 33-31, and they get it done. Herbert shows he's him. But, Lewis, let's move on to Monday Night Football. We have the New England Patriots going to play the Arizona Cardinals. New England -1.5, even though they're on the road, Lewis. And now we've seen this Patriots team, Lewis, all season long struggle against rushing quarterbacks. Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen all have gotten wins against this Patriots team. And now you're facing Kyler Murray, Lewis. So which way are you facing in this one?
This is a tough game to predict because the Cardinals are at home. They are coming off a bye week. And now also the Patriots are coming off a Thursday night football game in which they were routed by their divisional rivals in the Bills. So it's hard to say which team has more of the, edge in this one. I do think the Patriots would have it because they're still technically in the playoff hunt in the AFC, and they get a few wins here and there. They can get back into it. But, Laraib, I like the Cardinals in this matchup. I think Kyler Murray is going to torch this Patriots defense, which just doesn't have that many playmakers. And we saw that against the Bills. You have these young, corners for the Patriots like Jonathan Jones, Jack Jones, who have been solid this season. But are they going to be up to the task of handling a DeAndre Hopkins or Marquise Brown? I don't think so. They're small corners who are very fast and very smart. But when it comes down to big DeAndre Hopkins or Marquise Brown, just insane athletes running down the field, you're not going to be able to catch up with them. And on the other side of the ball, this Patriots offense is just so hard to predict. Mac Jones, he's been put in a position of hell, in which their only touchdown last week against the Bills was a 48-yard trick play to a special teamer. And that's just showing desperate from a former respected Patriots offense. Now, I think you can run against this Cardinals offense or defense, which I think, maybe Ramondre Stevenson has a good game in this one, but the Cardinals are way too explosive in my opinion, and they will expose this Bill Belichick defense. I like the Cardinals in this one. And, Kyler Murray out of the pocket. The Patriots have one of the worst defenses against mobile quarterbacks this season. They're just an old-fashioned team, and they're going to get exposed by the new-fashioned Cliff Kingsbury offense. I think the Cardinals win this game, Laraib.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you, Lewis. I think Bill Belichick goes 0-4 against mobile quarterbacks in this one. Like you mentioned, just the offensive firepower they have in this one. I think they can get it done. I know that the Cardinals defense isn't anything crazy either. They're actually really, really bad. When you're facing against Mac Jones, the only really weapon they have is Ramondre Stevenson. And so I don't think they're just not able to keep up in this one, Lewis. And so I like the Cardinals at home on Monday Night Football, 27-24.
And I'm going to go 31-27.
Woo!
Cardinals pull it out. It's going to be a high-scoring one against the Bill Belichick defense. But that will do it for this week's NFL games. A shorter episode, but we went pretty in-depth on some of these matchups. Before we go, we're going to go through our locks, upsets, and best bets of the week. Starting with our upsets, I went with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers going into San Francisco and beating the 49ers. If you're asking me if I'd rather have Tom Brady or Brock Purdy, I think I'd rather have Tom Brady. And you can't say it's as simple as that, but it's as simple as that. Give me the Buccaneers on the road, Laraib.
Well, Lewis, I also picked a team against the 49ers last week in the same exact line at 3.5, and I was burnt. So I hope the same happens to you this week. But for my upset, I'm going to pick the New York Jets, Lewis. Even if the Bills do win this game, I think the line at -9.5 is just a little bit too high. This Jets defense has been playing really, really well the past couple of weeks. And I think if Mike White and Zonovan Knight can all get hot in this one, it could be a close game, and the Jets, hopefully they win this one. So I like the Jets as my upset of the week, Lewis.
All right. And then our locks of the week, Laraib. My lock of the week is, in fact, the Seattle Seahawks locking up the Panthers at home. This is a game that's critical for their playoff lives. And this is a Panthers team that honestly should not be on the same field with the Seahawks team. And yes, there are some matchups I don't like for the Seahawks in this game, but this is a game that they just need to win at home, given their schedule going forward. I don't think 8 wins or even maybe 9 wins gets you into the playoffs at this rate. So they need to win this game going forward. So that's why they're my lock of the week.
Well, Lewis, the last time you had the Seahawks as your lock of the week, they actually lost. And so, hopefully you can reverse it in this one. But for my lock of the week,
did they?
I'm going to pick the Cincinnati Bengals, Lewis. Joe Burrow has never beaten the Browns in his career. But I think Deshaun Watson, he's been a little rusty. And I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals have been on a roll, and they continue it against the Browns at home.
All right, now let's go into our best bets of the week, Laraib. It was kind of tough to pick exactly which one I like the most, but in my opinion, Pittsburgh favored by 2.5. I like that -2.5 line. I think they win by more than that. Yes, this is a gritty divisional game with 2 good defenses, so it's hard to say it's going to be much more than 2.5, but I don't trust Tyler Huntley and this Ravens offense going up against this Steelers defense, so that is a really good line to me.
And for my best bet of the week, I'm going to pick the Chargers +3. I know you and I both disagreed on this game, but the one thing we did agree on is going to be a really tight field goal game in this one. So even if you don't like the Chargers, I think +3 is a great line for that game.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Make sure, as always, to check down in the links below for all of our socials and updates on upload schedules and everything that we have going on. We're super excited going into this last stretch of football. All the bye weeks end after this week, and we're going to start going into full playoff breakdowns, playoff clinching scenarios, and everything like that going into next week. And if you've made it this far in the episode, and if you text me the word cupcake, I will give Laraib $1 for every person who texts me. And I'll find out if Laraib told you beforehand. So that is our birthday special, Laraib. Anything else you want to say before leaving this episode?
No, I think that's going to be the First and Goal podcast. Signing off.
Peace.